What's up? And welcome to the Think Like a White Man podcast. I am Kai, and I am so happy that you're here today. Y'all, normally I love to come in with the positivity, but I legit had the worst week of my life last week. I cried every single day after work, and I was really out here questioning, am I really that boss bad bitch, and can I do my job? First off, ew, disgusting. That is not me channeling my inner white man energy. Let me take a break and do my Think Like a White Man affirmations. I am a bad bitch. I have value to bring just by existing, and my success is inevitable. Period. We back, baby. We haven't really come on here and talked about what I do for my job, but I'm actually building a brand new program and role at this company, and I'm essentially building in-house influencers to sell advertising. We love that for me. I am out here being a boss bitch. But last week I had a review with my senior leader, and she was essentially like, what the fuck did you just put in front of me? This is horseshit, Kai. Obviously, I'm being dramatic. She didn't say it like this. She's very work professional. But it really felt like that. It really hurt so bad. And I had to lean on my boyfriend, my friends, my new mentor, and also my therapist to really bring me out of this dark hole and get me back on my feet so that I can show up to the plate and do it again. And after recovering, I really had to reflect. Why the fuck did this hit me so hard? I'm a perfectionist. I'm extremely type A. Those are two obvious reasons. But it really came down to my fear of failing and my deep hatred of failing. Can you relate to this? Failing to me literally feels like it is the end of the world. Failing to me feels like admitting that I'm not capable or good enough to do something. And you know what's crazy that I think of while I say this is how unrealistic it is to expect to do anything and not fail. In fact, having the expectation to not fail means that I am automatically setting myself up for failure. Crazy, right? That is actually insane. I feel like I just had a brain blast right here. And for my high-performing perfectionist listeners, when we define ourselves by our achievements, failure begins to feel like a personal defect as opposed to a learning lesson. This is deep, y'all, and failing is deep in itself. And I want to ask you, when is the last time that you thanked God for your failures? Or whoever your higher power may be, when is the last time that you thanked them for your failures? Curveball, I know, that's right, coming out of nowhere for this podcast today. Failure is not something to be afraid of. It is something to be grateful for because every failure gives you the opportunity to learn and grow. Failure is literally the process that you build yourself from and your life from. In fact, you cannot achieve your dream life if you don't fail. It is as simple as that. I took some time to sit down with the horrible failure that I felt this week and take some time to reflect on my entire cognitive life, and I realized that every failure that I've had ended up leading to something better. And that is what we are going to be talking about in today's podcast, which is how to release the fear of failure and all of the anxiety that comes with it, and instead find that part of you that wants to up-level yourself and grow and embrace your failures as learning opportunities to grow from. If you don't mind, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my life and my past today in this podcast because as I was sitting down and reflecting, I realized that if I had not failed in getting my dream job, that I would literally not be here living in New York City, hosting this podcast, and living my vision board life right now. When I started college, I was dead set on becoming a veterinarian. I was like, I'm going the pre-vet route. I'm going to study biology. And after 3 years of doing this, but even longer because I started volunteering when I was 12 at vet hospitals, I realized that this was not the industry for me. So I decided to switch to graphic design and advertising. And I was like, you know where I'm going to work is Starbucks. I was dead set on getting a job at Starbucks. For 2 years, I was driving my 2008 Ford Focus 6 hours to Seattle, driving with my little dog, blasting Drake with the cassette to aux cord adapter to go network at the Starbucks headquarters. I was learning the culture. I was networking with the VPs. I was networking with the managers and the directors of the graphic design departments that I really wanted to work for. And I had it all mapped out. I was going to move to Seattle right after I graduated. I was going to join the graphic design teams. I was going to design the gift cards that people would buy. And I was going to climb my way up the ranks and developed global advertising campaigns for the largest coffee company in Seattle, Starbucks. That was my dream. And not only did I believe that that was something that I was going to do, but all the people that I also networked saw that for me. This was going to happen for me. And once it was my senior year and it was time for me to apply for jobs, I applied for one job that I was super excited for and didn't hear back. And then I applied for 25 more jobs and didn't hear back. And finally, I was able to get one informational interview, and they were like, you are absolutely a shoo-in for this opportunity. Go ahead, let's move you to the next stage. And I didn't hear back. Silence. I was ghosted. It was so painful. But I was committed to going to Starbucks. Nothing was going to hold me back from this. So I decided to go with my plan B option and just move to Seattle with a secondary job and know that eventually I will make my way over to my dream company. And lucky for me, my plan B worked out. I graduated with a job in hand and I was able to move to Seattle. And I was so disappointed that it was not Starbucks, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to be able to continue to pursue this. I graduated, I got to Seattle, and 6 months later, guess what happened? Every single person that I networked with had been laid off. People who had been at this company for 10 years, people who were VPs and directors completely lost their job. I 100% would have been laid off. I would have started that job. I would have been 6 months in role, and you know how it goes. Last in, first out. And all of my contacts that I had been networking with at Starbucks were starting to reach out to me on LinkedIn asking for job opportunities. Insane. And little did I know that my failure of not getting into my dream job actually allowed me to dodge an entire bullet. Think with me. How many times have you worked so hard for something and the fact that it didn't actually work out was actually in your favor? We need to change how we think about our failures. Black people are taught that we need to work 2 times harder in order to prove our value, which essentially means we need to be perfect and we have 0 room for failures. And systemically, whether you are looking at your household or you are looking at America, we are taught that we need to do the best we can in order to have success. And the larger that our goals and our visions are, the more perfect we have to be, right? But we actually need to normalize that the larger that our goals are, the larger risks we need to take and be prepared to fail. The most successful people fail often and use it as a learning tool. Period. Another quick story is I started a Black women empowerment influencer agency for exactly 3 months, and it failed hard. I went into starting this business feeling super confident. I knew that this was the right path for me, and I was putting all of my eggs in this basket. I worked harder than I ever had my entire life on this influencer agency. And I was able to score a huge deal with a huge brand and throw an event that was super impactful for minority women. But as things went along, I realized that I had made a critical mistake in selecting my business partner. And I realized that no matter how hard I tried, that this business was not going to be successful. And so 3 months after feeling like I opened a completely new chapter of my life, the business closed. When I tell you that I have never felt like more of a failure in my life, I have never felt like more of a failure in my life than in that moment. And let me know if you can relate to any of these things, but I burned out working so hard, trying to change the trajectory of my failure. And because I had failed, I went into, truthfully, a depression. And I felt like I didn't know my worth. I feel like I didn't know my value. I feel like everything that I saw for myself through this failure was just taken away from me. I truly felt like I could never work again. I felt like all I was good for was just being a house girlfriend. And honestly, I barely felt like I could do that. And I got completely obsessive over what I could have done better. Was it really the partnership? Was I too hard on myself? Was I trying to push against goals that were unrealistic? Could I have done this or that in order to improve the relationship? I don't know. I felt like I swung and I missed my shot, and that opportunity was never going to come again. I told all my friends, I told all my family that I was doing this new venture, and then 3 months later it closed, and I was so embarrassed to have failed, especially so quickly. And this had come after I had just quit my president of marketing job, and I was so nervous about how people were going to perceive me, and if they were going to be like, what the fuck is Kai doing with her life? She has no idea what she's doing. And I was too embarrassed to say that I was going to try something different after that, because I didn't want to look like I'm just flailing, trying to throw something on the wall, seeing what sticks. And I just spiraled, and all of that made me lose all of my confidence and made me think that I would never be able to have success in my life. And I'm not just talking about success in being a successful entrepreneur. I'm talking about that I could be successful, period. I didn't have anything that I could identify with. I felt aimless, and I had to figure out how to value myself without attaching myself to some external success. That right there was one of the most important lessons that I had to learn. That I'm not my mistakes or my successes. That I am valuable, independent, and outside of anything else that I accomplish in my life. And that I have worth just by existing, and that my worth doesn't change regardless of whether my business failed or not. That nobody else sees things exactly how you see them, feels things exactly how you feel them, or thinks exactly how you think, and therefore you are valuable for being you. That you are important just by existing. Because your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings add something special to this world that only you can bring. That is why your worth isn't about what you do, it's about who you already are. That's what I had to learn and tell and teach myself. I also learned that life is fucking long. That you can reinvent yourself, that you should reinvent yourself, and that it is okay to take some time to regroup and figure out what you actually want in life. And have it change. It took me a while, legitimately an entire year, to find my confidence, to find my worth, to recover from the trauma that I had from the business and the horrible thoughts and narratives that I was telling myself. But after that and through that, I feel so much more connected with myself. And I also understand it is okay to fail, and that I should not give a fuck about what people think of me. And if I start 100 business ideas, that might be what it takes in order to have success. I saw this really great interview with Denise, and she was talking about her personal story to success. And she said it took most of her life to find a business that yielded the success that she wanted to have. She said it took her until she was in her 40s to figure it out through testing and learning. She said she had multiple businesses fail before Denise Myricks Beauty took off, and she's 53 now. That story really taught me that life is long, and that I'm young as fuck even though I feel old as fuck, and that I have the time to learn and fail to get to where I need to be. And she's not the only one. There's this other vegan chef, and I'm blanking on her name right now, but she said that it wasn't until she was in her 40s that she finally had her big breakthrough where she found something that she was really aligned with and started having success. And she's online being a creator when she's 40. I thought that you would like tap out at a certain age of being able to be a creator, right? And so I say all of this because this is what taught me life is long, and you don't need to rush into success, and it requires failure to get there. All of these people have failed in order to refine them and get put onto the path that is meant for them. So not only did I learn a lot of those like deep emotional things that I needed to learn about myself, but let me tell you what else that I learned tactfully. First and foremost, how to vet a business partner. I'ma say that. I really learned that I am that bitch. Like, even though I was willing to take a lot of responsibilities, the reality is that I have so much value to bring that if somebody gets to partner with me, that they sure as hell better match my value. And I have raised the expectations on somebody that I will partner with. period. Through all of that, honestly, as I was losing myself and losing my confidence, I had to find a new inner voice for myself that says that I am valuable no matter what. AKA think like a white man, AKA I started this fucking podcast. All of those failures, from not getting my dream job to learning everything that I did in my first corporate job to moving to New York City, it led me here. And taking a step back, I see that I have had so much that I have learned and need to continue to learn in order to be an entrepreneur. I was a full-time influencer, and frankly, that failed. I felt so empty. And I learned that although I am a creative at heart, that I am a strategic business person, and I cannot just sit in front of a camera putting makeup on. I couldn't do it. But being an influencer also led me to my new 9-to-5, where I'm essentially building an influencer program at my company. It always works out. And I'm thanking God for my failures. I am a big journal girl these days, and so what I want you to do is actually go grab a journal or a piece of paper and write out all the failures that you've ever had, and specifically write out the negative emotions that you have with those failures. And after doing that and just realizing how much weight comes with the negativity of these failures, I want you to also write out what lessons did you learn from these failures? And I think that you're going to start being really proud of exactly where you are. And one thing that I have had to learn and that I am embracing in my life now is that when I am here with a failure or something that I really want is not working out, I now have 29, almost 30 years of experiences that I can look at and then tell myself, it has always worked out and everything will be okay, Kai. In fact, not only has it always worked out, but it is better than I even ever imagined it to be. And that helps me realize that every failure that I've had is a lesson for me to be who I am exactly today. And therefore, be thankful for every single failure, every single one. And so this week, I want us to make a commitment together that for ourselves and for this community, that we are going to get over our fear of failing. We are going to fail this week. Unfortunately, I'm gonna say it, we're going to fail this week, but we are going to reframe that failure into a learning lesson. And we are going to see it as feedback rather than a reflection of our worth. We need to realize that the only difference between somebody who has failed and somebody who has had success is that the person who has had success kept taking risks and failed through their risks and then used those as learning opportunities to lead them to the success that they have today. That is literally the only difference. We need to detach our identities from outcomes and recognize that our value and our worth is not in our mistakes. That we are valuable just by existing and that our success is inevitable. And lastly, we need to make more mistakes for real. If you're not making mistakes this week, then what are you doing? But making more mistakes is actually going to get our mindset right and get our nervous systems out of fight or flight mode when a mistake happens. I think about it as exposure therapy. We need to intentionally put ourselves in low stakes situations where failure is possible so that we can desensitize ourselves to fear. So it is okay if we fail this week. We just need to make sure that we fucking learn from it. And with that said, I will see you all next week. Or whenever I get this fucking podcast out, because you girls tired. Thank you for listening to the Think Like a White Man podcast. You can catch a new episode every Tuesday. And if you don't want to miss any of the action, please follow. I want to be able to hear from you, so please leave a review, leave a star rating. I want to know your thoughts. And if you want behind the scenes on seeing a Black corporate woman baddie struggling and trying to find balance, please follow me on It's Kai Denise on Instagram and TikTok.